Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys like the new intro. Been, been meaning to do an intro for a while and wanted to keep it short and sweet. So I hope you guys like that. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Newsflash Podcast. I'm your host, Emilio. Before we get started, just a quick reminder, please leave a like on this video, share it far and wide, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Tonight is a very special night, ladies and gentlemen. You may recall a video that I did recently with a journalist who was basically, trying to ask a very legitimate question, didn't even get through to the whole question. And the crowd at, I think it was the University of, she'll correct me. Anyway, a woke university, as always. Basically, the people there shut her down, started screaming at her, shouting at her. She got a bit of threats and stuff like that. And then the minister, an ANC minister, didn't do any better. I don't think he even tried to calm the crowd down. As a matter of fact, I would even say he kind of egged them on. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I reached out to this journalist. I was hoping that she would be very brave and willing to come onto the show, and she was, and she is. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome to the show the one, the only, Heleen Boshoff. I don't
Hey
know
Joe, I'm
how do
so
you
happy to be here.
how do I pronounce your name?
So it's Heleen Boshoff,
Okay. I'm being very English about it. Boshoff.
a very Afrikaans name, yeah.
Heleen. Okay. Heleen, thank you so much for being willing to come onto the show. It's great to have you, and I just want to say right off the bat, once again, uh, super brave of you to do what you did. I think we should start there, and I will keep an eye on the comment section for those who might have questions about what happened, or guys, you can ask any question really. But yeah, I'll keep an eye on the question section. We'll have like a last 15 minutes Q&A. But I think we should start pretty much from the event. If you can just remind us what the event was, and also I really want to know, because you had started asking the question, but you never finished the question. So if you can just also, you know, uh, tell us what the question actually was.
Certainly. So I'm really grateful for this opportunity, and I think it's a very important discussion to be had. I believe all South Africans have a great love for this country, and so it's important to, when the opportunity presents itself, to really take it and do what is necessary. So I received an invitation from the University of the Western Cape. One of their campuses is located in my area of coverage, which is Bellville. And when I saw the topic on Expropriation Act, I simply knew I really needed to be there, no matter the cost. So um, I I went. So just to preamble what the discussion was about. So the invitation stated that this was a public dialogue, really expressing the other side of what has been prevalent in the media. Those who really hunger for land and emancipation. And so the invitation stated that, I'm going to read this verbatim. So, despite prevailing spatial and land inequality in South Africa, reactions to the new Expropriation Act by AfriForum, political parties, and US President Donald Trump have dominated the public narrative, spreading disinformation and fake news. So, following the whole public discussion, when I was starting to write the article for coverage, I actually reached out to the communication person for PLOS, I believe it was the Institute for Poverty, Land and Agrarian Studies, that PLOS organization. They held this discussion in collaboration with activist groups, and I noted that since they were alluding that the likes of AfriForum were spreading disinformation, whether they had been invited or not. And interestingly, this person replied that no political party or anyone was invited. Um, and the misinformation they were referring to was really that of President Donald Trump. And I just found that a bit interesting. So nonetheless, when I saw that the Minister of Land Reform and Rural Development was going to be there, I was just like, this is a chance I won't be having again soon. So I just simply needed to be there. So my question, so let me first get to actually being there with the crowd and trying to observe how the discussion was going to go, and really what are the parameters regarding facts or feelings over the matter, or how they regarded information sharing surrounding the discussion. I must tell you that the people in the crowd, you could really tell they are blue collar. They are people on the lower spectrum of, let's say, the income bracket, and I really don't want to denounce how much they do hunger for improvement of their standard of living, and they have been led to believe that land is the answer to that. However, in my opinion, they were truly just let down by the same government who now promises to give them land for the past 30 years, which was really tragic to witness firsthand, and seeing the amount of emotion that is involved in the discussion. So knowing the kind of question that I was going to pose, because it is a very important question, it was definitely a very daunting task. Even before being there in person, I knew that emotions were going to be high and very in favor of the Expropriation Act. So I did expect to ruffle some feathers, although I didn't quite expect it as much. And in hindsight, I think if the likes of AfriForum were to be there, there might not have been much of a discussion just by their sheer presence in hindsight. So nonetheless, my preamble really touched on how I respectfully wish to tell Minister Mzwanele Nyotso, who, by the way, just a small correction, he's a PIC minister. He's not with the ANC. But either way, I don't think their politics have so many stark differences. So I just wanted to bring clarity and balance back to the discussion, seeing how national government, with the establishment of the GNU, national government's voter base have basically expressed their weaning faith in the ANC to really uphold its mandate. And so I really wanted to drive that point in by saying that an act like the Expropriation Act is a very ambitious act to actually roll out, where so many things can go wrong, and unintended consequences are a reality, a very possible threat. So my question, again verbatim, is how can national government guarantee the protection of private property that is vulnerable to potential illegal land invasions, given that the state does not litigiously intervene in such events unless any illegal land invasion occurs on municipal or state-owned land? So meaning that land grabs that have occurred so far, like I remember you even did a video on this, as reported by SABC most recently, like a month ago, was a land invasion in Seshego, Limpopo, for example. So I'm fearing for land invasions on private property. And we all know once a land invasion occurs on private property, then the state or a municipality, they don't have any legal grounds to intervene, except for the private owner having to launch an eviction order through the court. And I believe everyone in South Africa knows the lengthy and exuberant financial strain that can be. And by the time where eviction notices or grants are ruled by a court, the land invasion, you know, could be dire. So that is really what I wanted to express, that the possibility is very likely to be. And when I was able to reflect on how the discussion really went down and the crowd's reaction, I was thinking to myself, this was actually the perfect opportunity for the minister and national government, any proponent of the Expropriation Act, to reason with the critics or those highly cynical of the act, and really drive home that, you know, if they have um, concrete plans of rollouts and protections, this was really Minister Mzwanele's opportunity to focus on that, emphasize that, and bring calmness and security to those who are not very excited about it. And
Yeah, and
I,
he
in
instead he kind of proved your point as to why we should be worried, because he just kept on. He repeated the rhetoric of we want the land bank and it's not theft because it was stolen from us. So because it was stolen from us first, is it really, theft and all that? So I'm paraphrasing heavily, but yeah, I mean, I think you bring up a good point there, because yeah, he should have done that. He should have been like, well, okay, it's a fair point. Like, he should have been like, yeah, it's a very good point you bring up, thank you, and then address that issue, and that concern. But instead he just doubled down like all lefty politicians do. But anyway, you were saying, you brought that question up and you hoped that he would react a certain way, but unfortunately he didn't. But I think, yeah, continue as you were.
So in that moment, it was obviously quite very overwhelming. It really felt like a force of um, the reactions and people's emotions hit me, very palpable. I believe the minister started responding, but I believe he was speaking in Xhosa. So I didn't understand it initially, but I went afterwards and I looked at transcripts, and he actually, I think he attempted to appease the crowd a bit, and saying that something in the line of, bless this child, you're so welcome. And but then in English, he went on to address me in a bit of a, I don't know what's the
Condescending.
correct
He was condescending.
condescending
Yeah.
way. and and almost like the sense that I had was, you're free to leave and take Donald Trump on his offer, was the feeling that I got. Um, so there was another thing I wanted to remember, but I'm sure we'll get there.
Yeah. I think, before we continue, I just want to. There's a fan slash friend that I haven't seen in a very long time, and I just want to say hello, Amy. Thank you for coming on. Well, not coming on, but I mean, watching the show. Hope you're doing well. Hope everything's good on your side. Thank you so much. And speaking of which, everybody else that's in the comment section, thank you so much for commenting. Like I said, for those of you just joining, if you have any questions for Heleen, we'll have a Q&A section at the end. If you have, some of you have seen the video, I see Jose or Hose says, I saw how she was treated. What a disgrace, and what a peach. Great interview. Keep it up the good work, Joe. Thank you, Hose, or Joe's. I'm not sure how to pronounce that.
Yours.
Yours, okay. And then some other people commenting. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. And again, if you have any questions for Heleen, please don't be afraid to ask. We'll get to them at the end. So Heleen, you stood up there. You tried to ask a very valid question. You were interrupted mid question. Then a gentleman comes, and there's a bit of an interaction there. You stated that he asked you, so your questions about private property, and you he was kind of taking the mic away from you, and you realized, oh, this is not a battle I'm going to win, so leave it. Curious, was there any other media there?
I believe there was. So there was an initial clip that went viral from Cat White Media, and I actually remember seeing her sitting in the crowd, but not the main crowd facing the panel. It was a bit like near to the door, but there were other members holding cameras, but whether they were from the university or from other media publications, I couldn't say.
Okay. And so again, you asked the question, you tried to ask the question, you're told, I don't know, did he tell you to sit down, or did you just sit
No,
down?
no, no. So he was just trying to understand what I was onto, what my question was about, and I could be wrong, but it felt almost like, so okay, so basically you want to ask about private property, like that was a side issue, not really like a big aspect to the whole debate.
Yeah.
And then I said yes, and he, I don't know, it wasn't like super forceful, but I just knew that I wasn't going to be able to retain this mic. And when I played back the video, I saw there were actually 2 additional people running around to come and ensure that no more questions were asked at
Oh wow.
that
Okay.
stage. And when I relinquished, the one lady actually looked very relieved and she smiled, which was quite amusing to me.
Yes. Okay. That's actually very interesting. It's almost like, oh, it these people are here. Let's not give anybody else. You know what I mean? Like they're scared of some real questions. And like when we first started talking about this story, I told you like, man, I wish I was there.
I know.
um,
I thought you would be there.
I would have loved to try and get the mic, but anyway. Okay, so that happens. People can go watch the video and get a full context of that. But I think what we don't see is the aftermath. So you're sitting there, the minister's addressing you, saying all the BS that he's saying. You can hear the crowd also like very happy by what the minister's
Mm.
saying. And so what happened afterwards? What like did anyone intimidate you? Did they continue to almost like like ha in your face kind of vibe, or what happened afterwards?
So I witnessed a fair amount of disdain from the people immediately surrounding me. And in a sense, I completely understand why, because there has not been an honest and balanced discussion had with them surrounding South Africa's history, the complete, full history, and the true ownership of South African land. I mean, the land statistics are still, I feel, a bit disputed, because there are so many land audits that still need to occur to establish farmland from state-owned land, from, um, you know, unutilized land. There's so many aspects about it, and I feel like the discussion that was had that day was overly generalized. It was a lot of blanket statements about past injustice and current land ownership, failing to mention that most of South Africa's land is state owned, and especially very glossing over South African history, as if the colonials and settlers back in the time did not have their own relations with natives in Africa, who did not establish their own treaties or um, legitimate purchases of lands or trades. So South African history is just so nuanced, and it's really irresponsible, in my opinion, for activist groups or whatever to really play on the emotional side surrounding the rhetoric, rather than really bringing clarity and just sense to where are we now. Why did land reform, etc., in its current form, why did that fail? And I believe every South African knows the answer to that, and unfortunately national government have not been responsible. They have not been dependable when it came to the current land reforms that are in place. I believe you've made mention of this so many times, that even the recipients of lands in legitimate land claims and land restitution, yes, there are legitimate land restitution issues that need to be handled. And I wish that national government had more efficiency, that the courts had more efficiency and urgency to do that, so that claimants of legitimate land um, could have gotten their land back without waiting a decade or more. You know, a lot of those claimants have died before they were able to reclaim their land, and that is really tragic. So there was more that national government definitely could have done to speed up that process, but I believe we all realize the lack of political will to do so. Um, and so back to when I was on campus, so emotions were running really high, and I believe the minister at that time, when he started addressing question and answers, he mentioned that he was running late for another meeting or event, and that he needed to leave shortly. So that's really when the panel died down a bit. I don't think a lot of people stayed on far longer after the minister left, even though I believe discussions might have intended to continue. And it was really strange at the height of the hype, when I just given over the mic again. There was a lady who started taking photos of me, and I wouldn't say I feared or anything. It was definitely intimidating for a moment or two. And you had your young student men who have this idea of where South Africa is and South Africa's history, and they did try to like shoo me away there from the campus and saying not to bring my agenda, which was really just to see how the minister would react and respond to a reasonable question. That was pretty much the agenda. um, and But other than that, I wouldn't say I had much fear or anything. It was to be expected.
Well, again, Helene, I gotta say, like, it's so refreshing to see a journalist who is actually on the side of truth. And your question was legitimate. Your question, there was nothing wrong with your question. It wasn't controversial. It wasn't anything like that. You're asking a simple question about the Expropriation Act and private property, which I think a lot of people would like to know. And like you said, the minister squandered his opportunity to, put any fears aside, but again, maybe there is a reason to fear. Maybe that's the takeaway there. But again, kudos to you for trying. Kudos to you for standing up in literally what was enemy territory. And yeah, I want to chat a bit more, if you're willing to, about journalism in South Africa. Now, I understand that some questions you may not be able to answer, and we're not going to go into why. I think people can understand why. But I do want to ask you some questions about journalism, because again, you are one that very few journalists that I've encountered that actually say the things that you've said, um, which kind of goes against mainstream, if I can put it that way. So, for you as a journalist, um, how has life as a journalist been these days? It's I feel that in journalism, and you can give your own opinion. I feel in journalism, it's either let's talk about racism because that gets a lot of clicks, or let's talk about Afriform because that gets a lot of clicks. Doesn't matter what we put out there as long as people are clicking and going to the website or going and reading, so our advertisers are happy. That's the kind of vibe I get. But maybe you can shed some light onto as to what journalism is like today.
Certainly. So I have been a community journalist for the past 5 years. I have served communities. I started out in Johannesburg serving Kempton Park, and then I moved to the Cape Winelands, covered Paarl and Wellington. From there, I covered Constantia, Wynberg, the southern suburbs, and then most recently, I've been covering Bellville. Um, so I can only speak as a community journalist. I have no experience as a national journalist. I've been very content knowing my readers on a fairly intimate level as opposed to a national journalist. I serve the same communities more consistently. So I cannot really speak for a national journalist. However, I do sympathize with journalists across the board in one sense, since COVID hit the media industry very hard in ways that the industry did not expect, obviously, before the pandemic hit. So there has been, across the board, I believe, especially in the print industry, a lot of restructuring of staff. So you had your companies who chose to restructure upper level management instead of lower level employees, such as journalists who are on the ground. But I believe there were newsrooms that the teams were quite heavily gutted because of sheer financial necessity. So I really do. I really do understand that the covering news is not as it used to be, where you had great members of teams, who could handle the workload. As a community journalist, I can attest to being a one-man show. We no longer have just purely photographers or videographers, etc. You're a journo, you are in charge of your photos, you take your own videos, you write your story, you edit your videos, and you do much of the digital and social coordination that goes along with that. So the teams are under a lot of pressure, and it's sad that, in your opinion, that it was really a rare sight to see a journo posing such a question at such an opportune time. Um, Sometimes it does feel like a luxury to break away from the desk and being able to really witness and experience these things, and really act like a watchdog when the time calls. So Um, yeah, I have a lot of what is what do you call it? I just missed the word now. But I have a lot of um, what is that word for my fellow journo? I know it's not easy.
Admiration.
Yeah, solidarity is what I wanted to say. I have a lot of solidarity for my fellow journo. But yeah, I think the scope of coverage on the right and the left, there's just too much to say on that. So
Yeah, I think you bring up some interesting points. Especially COVID. I don't think people realize. Maybe some people do. I think everybody realizes that there was a bit of a knock for every industry after COVID, and maybe for journalism and news outlets. Took a very hard hit. Even though I think, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but like during COVID, you guys were still working, right? Like, or was it maybe the first month you guys were off, or were you still working during COVID?
no, absolutely, we were still working. A lot of us transitioned to work from home,
Mm.
as most people. And yeah, I would say that was one of the amazing benefits of the pandemic, is to prove that, whether remotely or on site, South Africans will get the work done.
Yeah, no, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so I just have actually, before I forget, Matthew Dixon, who, by the way, I have to disclaim this. Matthew Dixon's actually my resident troll, but he's like a troll that oddly we like, because
Okay.
it's a weird love-hate relationship between me and him. But
Okay,
he's
great.
given a 14 rand super chat, which he almost never gives super chats, and if he does, they're usually like 2 rand because he's trying to be funny. But he's given 14 rand. Thank you so much, Matthew Dixon, for the super chat. And he says, "Hey Joe, how can we support Helene?" A very fair and important question.
Oh, that's so very kind. So at the moment, I have no real presence on social media, apart from private personal accounts. The dream has always been there to have a more independent style and voice. Um, at this stage, there's definitely concepts in the works. However, I don't have any channel that I can share now, but people are very welcome to just, keep an eye out for Heleen Boshoff. And I really hope to deliver something unique and authentic, and something balanced that I believe South Africans really crave.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think there is a huge market for that, and like you and I have discussed this. I'm a comedian, and like I've had a few people in the comment section are like, "You're not a real journalist," and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not." Like, I've never once claimed to be. I don't try to be. I'm just some comedian who commentates on the news and try and have a bit of fun with it. But I think that someone who has the expertise, who's studied it, who's studied to be a journalist, and everything that comes with it, I think, yeah, there's definitely a craving for it. And I think also, judging by how people reacted to the video that I made on you, a lot of people in your corner, which is awesome. I mean, even now in some of the chats here, Bo Smith saying, "Well done, thank you for standing up. Well done, Helene. We need more like you. Um, Glad you're part of the community, Helene. Cape Town thanks you." And then there was a super chat from Bo Smith saying, "Thank you both." So there's a lot. And by the way, thank you for the super chat, Bo Smith, 14 rand. Thank you very much. Or we also call them super super sassas. Super sassas? Do we call them that? Sasa chats, something like that. Sasa chats. That's what we call them. Sasa chats.
There you are.
But yeah. So I think I think what I'm getting at is, if you were to venture out and do your own thing, I think you'd find a lot of support. But what's been keeping you from kind of trying to dabble in the YouTube sphere or the social media sphere or whatever? Is it just time? Is it you don't know where to start? Like what's keeping you?
It's certainly time, and not knowing where to start. Although I know having something a bit controversial happening is a good way to start. Certainly, so I feel tremendously blessed, and I'm very grateful for people's support and reaction to what happened. So it's definitely feeling like this is again an opportunity not to be wasted. And on another level, I remember when I was on varsity, I dabbled a bit on Twitter, or which is now X, and I just realized that if I really wanted to make a name and be trusted by an audience, one should be very careful as to really how you frame your message and analysis, and how fine the balance can be. And at that time, I was just a bit careful, and I was just like, for a few years, I just want to sheerly observe and really, yeah, just come to know what to expect from an audience based on creators' content and how they frame things. So I think it's become more of a comfort zone, to be quite honest, because um, I so want to be a very good community journalist and really focus on my duty there. That I was also just afraid of how to prioritize and um, not let the community down while pursuing my own thing. So it's truly a balance thing, but I suppose there's just no excuse. I simply just have to to roll with the punches and make things happen.
True, but I mean, yeah, cut yourself some slack. I mean, at the end of the day, we all have a mortgage to pay, right? We got to put food on the table, and yeah, so some things just are more important. But I think, judging by again how the audience has reacted to you, I think maybe think about it. Maybe in a few months, we'll see Heleen Boshoff channel, YouTube channel,
Bosoff.
Bosoff. Sorry.
Yeah, man, I would really love that, and I have so much to say.
Yeah, like again, it would be greatly. I think you'd have a lot of fans, and again, like what's also nice is like you're Afrikaans as well, so there's an Afrikaans market for you as well, which I'm sure that that
Mm.
market's also that's also there for you. Let me just to get to some of the. I haven't really been a lot of questions, but I'll remind people again, please, if you have any questions for Helene. For those of you just tuning in, maybe you're wondering who my guest is. It's Heleen Boshoff. Sorry if I'm butchering your name. Um, and you may recognize her from the video that I did not too long ago, about 2 weeks ago. This young lady reporter who was asking a very fair question to a minister in land reform minister, and he basically attacked her back and um, tried to put her in her place. And you'll remember also the audience that was there also just turning on her. She didn't even get to finish her question. So she has agreed to come onto the show, and we're having a discussion about that event. So if you're just tuning in, please, at the end of this live stream, go watch the beginning where we discuss that. If you're just tuning in now, if you have any questions for Heleen, anything at all, uh, she, at her discretion, will answer any questions that she can. And I'm getting some comments in now. Not really questions, but Grasshopper says, "Why don't you help Helene with her dream? You guys could work together. Give her a slot on your show." I'm anything's on the table. Not gonna lie. Like anything, like if Helene has a story for me, sure, we'll do something. I'm open to it. So that's not a problem. And then Matthew Dixon saying, please ask your guest if there is or is there any news that we should be aware of off the
Hmm.
top of your head?
So, if we want to keep it on topic, I watched a podcast interview with someone I've been following, not necessarily politically. She's more of a, a Christian evangelist who used to be a atheist, with the likes of Richard Dawkins. So she has a podcast. Her name is Ayan Hirsi Ali, and she interviewed, I believe you guys are acquainted, Mark Oppenheimer, which was a very, very good interview. She knew exactly how to understand South Africa's predicaments and how to frame her questions and focus on the important issues that's really about the whole picture. It's not only about expropriation. And so I feel like Mark was really sophisticated, very eloquently articulated South Africa's predicament in a very fair way. And of course, he spoke a bit about his experience representing AfriForum in the High Court case regarding the Kill the Boer controversy. And I was thinking of just like mentioning this if it happened to come about. I think it's important that um, the genocide claims being made on white people in South Africa. Obviously, I also believe most South Africans agree that there is not a white genocide raging in South Africa. And the likes of AfriForum have never made such claims. And it's always very telling to me how when the kind of organizations, and AfriForum is a civil rights organization, they're not political, that are the kind of bodies in society that looks out for red flags, warning signs, really try to compare histories of other countries where things have gone extremely wrong and tragic. And I think everyone remembers the Rwandan genocide. I remember watching a documentary on that also when I was in varsity, and the sheer horror of witnessing what happened between the the Hutus and the Tutsis, and just how quickly something so horrific escalated was enough to make me realize that no, we are not in a genocide, and white people are not being threatened, literally um, being isolated with threats at the moment when you walk the streets. But after viewing the realities that occurred in Rwanda and the signs that preceded the genocide that people were able to examine in hindsight, there are symptoms that have already occurred in South Africa, which is also very alarming. And those in society that simply dismiss it, and even expropriation without compensation, dismiss it like it would never really happen. I would not be so confident knowing how, when politics come into play, like my dad always said, regarding racial tensions, South Africans really do work together well from any race, one on one. We don't have problems with each other. It's the moment politics enter into it that on a bigger scale, it becomes more toxic, I would say. So I would just say that there is a lot of calls to action. There is no shortage of calls to action. What we all need to do is have more calls to caution, really try to bring sense into discussions and try to just eliminate as much emotion from any topic or debate or discussion as possible when discussing and thinking about South Africa's problems and ways that we can truly address them.
Yeah, it's all very valid points, and I agree with you. Like, um, I also get annoyed a little bit with these. I don't know why it's there. Like, I don't know. I think some media house started the rumor about the whole Afriform saying that there's a white genocide, and it just kind of stuck. And Afriform has been winning uh, cases against media houses who accuse them of that, and then the media houses have to apologize. I mean, just recently, News 24 had to apologize for saying the same thing about Afriform. And your point on white genocide, um, I've said it on this channel many times, and I've said it on other channels. I don't think that there is a full blown white genocide happening, but there are, like you said, symptoms that are alarming. I mean, just recently with, the kill the Boer uh, being protected speech, that to me is very alarming. Because like the Rwandan genocide and all the other things that were said there that were kind of protected speech, and then it just escalates after that. And I think, while yes, right now, if I walk in the streets, I'm not going to get in a fight with anyone. No one's going to hate on me. No one, and I don't see anyone hating on white people or anything like that in the streets when I walk the streets in my neighborhood. Um, but there is something alarming on a political level about how white people are treated in this country. Um, and again, another refreshing thing for a journalist to say. I mean, you don't hear journalists say this very often. So again, thank you for being honest. And speaking of which, Etienne has an offer for you. He says you can get in touch with him, and he can help you with on a technological level or technology level if that's something you want to do. Uh, and Insidious Anti Mason says you're the Afrikaans Candace Owens. Very.
I'll take it.
Percy says, "Go girl!" And we got another super chat from Matthew Dixon. Matthew Dixon, wow, someone got extra pay this month. I, I already, I already like your guests more than you, Joe. Well, I mean, come on, it's no competition there.
I think
And
someone said Matthew is the best troll.
yeah.
I have to agree.
And then Gavin sharing the link to the video that I did on you. Go to America Journalist shut down for searching for the truth on illegal land grabs. Go check that out, ladies and gentlemen. The link is in the live chats. I should have linked it actually at the bottom of this video. Maybe I'll do that after we're done here. Cool. I'm not seeing any other questions, but ladies and gentlemen, if there are any questions, please ask. We got about just over 10 minutes left of the conversation. So if you got any questions for Heleen, please do not be afraid to ask. Oh, 144 saying Matthew chasing in on his OnlyFans. I don't think he really has OnlyFans, although I don't know. Maybe he does. Anyway, Heleen, we spoke about journalism. We spoke about, you mentioned that you're in community journalism. You've been doing it for a few years now. Let me ask you this: why did you get into journalism? What at what point in your life were you like, yeah, this is what I want to do?
So I've always had a natural talent for writing. My friends at school, they would, like, I had a book that I would pass around with friends that they really liked, and I've written a little bit, and they were all telling me what a good writer I was. And so that was really the first time I started thinking about it. I was about like 15 or 14, and I realized that I would love to become a writer. I loved the English language. It's fairly stronger than my Afrikaans writing, if I'm honest. And then when I started to really think realistically about how I would earn a living in South Africa, journalism was really just um, the most sensible way I thought I would be able to make a living. And when I got into university and started studying journalism, and I double majored in political studies, that's when I just fell more in love with it and really realized the duty that goes along with it. I prefer the term being a watchdog, because you really have to stand in for communities that are voiceless, who are not always heard in the noise of politics and, let's say, viral, controversial things. There are people really on the baselines, that need to be heard, and their experiences need to be seen. So that's really been a privilege, and an honor, and I always hope that I do that to my best ability. Um, but yeah, journalism can definitely be challenging in South Africa. Journalists are very fortunate in the news scope, especially having covered Johannesburg. I mean, that was just like gold for news, not to minimize the tragedy and the horrors that do happen to real people every day. But I did not have to look around for news stories very far. It was I could literally pick and choose what news story of the day to focus on. In the Western Cape, however, there is more room for community stories, more soft, positive stories, and it's always very interesting when readers or audiences would accuse journalists of being very sensational, although I don't regard myself as a sensational journalist. Um, like, I know there are news channels who really love to focus on racial elements of a story, when I feel that can sometimes lead to more damage than any newsworthiness to the matter. But it's always funny when readers accuse journalists of being very sensationalist, because to a degree our news lists are determined by the clicks, and even our most amazing, positive, good feel stories don't get nearly as much clicks as those headlines that are truly shocking or horrific or graphic or whatever the case may be, stirring, um, whether it's conflict or whatever. It's just like the audiences also drive the news agenda. So I always say, if you want to see more good feel stories, then read more good feel stories.
Yeah, I think maybe that's also some self-reflection then, because if I guess it is true, humans are drawn to tragedy, drawn to it's like a car crash, right? If you I don't know about you, but like if I drive by a car crash, I can't help but look at what happened, and you don't really want to see a dead body, but like then you see a dead body, you're like, oh, the drama. And I think
Yeah.
I think we're drawn to drama, and I think maybe that's a reflection on us. Maybe we need to do some self reflection as a species, and maybe stop clicking on um, those headlines that cause so much stir and drama. And then maybe the news outlets will change the kind of stories that they write about. I don't know. That's a very good point. Um, Having said that, though, Charles says tragedy is sensationalist. I think there's a fine line. You could definitely find a fine line between the two. There's tragedy, like really really awful things that happen, and then there's people who can take that and then sensationalize it even more. And
Mm.
I think South Africans have seen many examples of that. Hank's pub is a good example of over sensationalism, and
Especially on like when it comes to news from schools, and it's driven with a very racial angle. And then when you see a video of a brawl that happened between two boys of a young age, then I'm like, it's so unfair when the race of the two boys that were involved in a brawl, and I know sometimes slurs are highlighted in such a brawl, but sometimes it's just young schoolboys who fight, and instead of the community or South Africa's adults trying to teach teens, like, listen, we are going to disagree about things, instead of focusing on stuff like that, let's focus on what upset you guys about what happened in the first place. Like, try to teach them how to approach conflict and how to really peacefully resolve it, other than making the great emphasis on race. I feel like it's so unfair to our young generation, because really that teaches them absolutely nothing. And so I'm always very annoyed when I see race being baited when it it's really not necessary.
Yeah, and it's always like some of the racial or the race baiting. Like, there's some stories that I tend to stay away from. Like when the Hank pub thing happened, I didn't do a story on it because
Mm.
I just got this gut feeling like, "Oh, let's wait until the facts come out." And
Mm.
lo and behold, a few months later, facts came out. Um, but I do have two questions here for you. One is from Matthew Jackson. I think Matthew has a crush on you. How can we, as the public, assist Helene with her work? Good question.
Oh, well, whenever there is a news story that craves the attention of your local publication or any publication, it's always a great deal of help to reach out to the publication, especially if you have very reliable information or even sources that can lend a voice to the story. Um, and yeah, if ever there's any footage to be shared, it's always welcome. um, and I would say read. Um, Try to go to your local newspaper and really see what is happening in your local community. There's so many wonderful stories, wonderful initiatives that are really the backbone of delivery, where service delivery and government just cannot reach with current budgets. So there's a wealth of community insight to be had, especially with community publications or radio stations. Whenever I reflect on or look at some digital stats, it's always quite sad to see that our readership is mainly like your 50 plusers, people above 60, 70. So the youth is not really quite keen on reading. And so we always try to boost a bit of more visuals that the young audiences like. However, right now print is still very alive and well, and that's what keeps community news alive. So whenever you see a local newspaper, pick it up and give it a read, give it a follow on the socials, and yeah, just be invested enough in your community to read about it.
And in the future, when Helene has her own X account, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube channel, you can tag her when there's a news story that's worthy.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so Charles has a few comments here. He says, I thought those people treated Helene poorly. They turned an issue into a race issue. They surely did. Just an observation. Helene seems to be one of the few journos in South Africa with integrity. These days, I tip my hat off to you. He added later on that he meant to put with integrity. So there you go. See, I told you, people are loving you, Helene. And with that, Gavin has a question. Has your life changed at all since the incident? Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm sure life-changing potential is certainly still very possible. It certainly did. I always knew that I might be involved in some kind of viral moment, and this happened to be it. And it was quite thrilling. I actually enjoyed it. I have no fear whatsoever
Great.
when encountering moments like that. It is daunting, but it's very exciting. And the support from people has really been amazing. It's obviously very enjoyable, and it has honestly boosted a lot of courage in me to
Good.
come out of my shell a little more. So I'm very excited as to what the future can bring.
Fantastic. And on a positive note, her laugh is infectious in its purity. Am I the only one falling for her? I hope she just stops. I hate to break it to you, Insidious, but she is married to a lovely, lovely man. I've met him. Um, Actually, funny story. How I actually know Helene is very interesting because her husband. For those of you who don't know, I do an open mic night once a month, and basically give a stage for aspiring comedians to take the stage. And her husband actually was on a few times. Part of our competition and stuff, got really far. He was a semifinalist. That's how I got to meet Helene as well. So small world.
Yeah, and I'm
um,
very fortunate to be his main audience at
yeah.
home. We have a
Yeah.
lot of fun.
A little bit of a side note though. This is going to be a little off topic a little bit, but like I gotta know. So when your husband was preparing for the competition, just to give a bit of context, every year, well, starting last year was the first year we did a stand up comedy competition. That's where we look for the youngest, not youngest in terms of age, but youngest in terms of career wise,
Mm.
comedian who's just started out. We try and look for the most talented young comedian. Last year's winner was Adrian Mate, who was phenomenal. But your husband came into the semifinals, and I've always wondered, Helene, does he make you like before even just open mic night? Does he make you sit there and like, hey babe, okay, what do you think of this? And then he goes,
No, no, not at all. Like,
okay,
he would screen some of them by me, and I would give him a bit of an audience flavor of it. But no, I was very fortunate in viewing it real time along with the audience, which
okay,
was
cool.
sometimes it was most of the times it was awesome. Very few times it was a bit um uh
Leafy, what are you doing?
terrifying. Especially when he would start a joke with like my wife kind of joke, and it's not like you know very neutral. It's sometimes very embarrassing intimate details. So yeah, sometimes that was quite awkward.
Yeah, it comes with being married to a comedian. My wife's also the butt of many jokes, but she enjoys them. I always run if I have a joke about her, I'll run it by her, and then she'll be like, "Okay, fine, you can say it. It's funny."
That's very honorable of you.
But yeah, no, it's a nice little event that we got going there. I hope your husband will be back soon. He's
Absolutely.
kind of taking a bit of a break, but yeah, like that's how you and I met. And I think I did see a question. Sorry, Charles. Has Helene experienced much in the way of double standards when dealing with news issues often?
I'm not exactly sure um, when he speaks about double standards what he means. I do believe there certainly is a lot of double standards that does exist in mainstream discussions. Um, it's yeah, that can segue into a whole lengthy discussions about it in itself. But are there double standards in South Africa and in media? Certainly, but I would need to understand his question a bit better to answer that more precisely.
Fair enough. Perhaps we can leave it for another conversation as we close off the show, ladies and gentlemen. I do have to go, and the hour went very quickly.
It did. It was fantastic.
Okay, I think he clarified. Do you get treated differently compared to other journos in South Africa? Interesting question.
Oh, no, I can't say that I do.
It's
I was
because you're a woman. That's why.
well, yeah, it's we are a lot of ladies in the industry. That much I can say. But I was very, I was very glad at UWC when they did open the floor.
Mm. Helene, I think your mic battery died because you just cut off. um, do we have any other audio there? Okay, gotcha. Now,
You got me?
yeah, there we go. Can hear you now.
Okay.
Sorry, if you can just repeat the answer there.
So yes, I was just saying that I was very fortunate that the organizations that hosted the discussion at UWC did open the floor for media questions, and I was the first one. I was actually quite eager to raise my hand, and they did give me the floor. So I was very grateful for that opportunity.
Awesome. Okay, guys, I'm gonna have to end it there. But I'm definitely gonna have, like, as long as Helene wants to, you're more than welcome to come back. Maybe if there's another, maybe if next time have your Beketele moment. Get a minister to say, "Shut up." Really get them angry, Helene.
Oh, I don't think hyping up emotions is the best way to to have good discussion in essay. That's like kind of the whole point, Joe, to tone down the emotion.
Yeah, well, I do wish you the best of luck in your career, and I cannot wait to see what the future holds for you. I really do hope that you do a little bit of I wouldn't say independent, but get out there a little bit more, put yourself out there a little bit more on social media and stuff like that. I think it'd be great to see. And having said that, Helene, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for being brave, and thank you so much for everything that you do.
Oh, I should thank you, Joe. I really appreciate having this space and having your time and attention. And thanks to all your viewers who have joined us for this conversation. Um, it's been so wonderful, and I'm truly grateful.
You You are most welcome. If you can just hang on for 2 minutes while I sign off, I will be with you in a moment. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Heleen Boshoff. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Boshoff, I'm sorry. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm sorry that I have to rush off, but I really do have to go. Tune in tomorrow for the Newsflash episode. We're going to be talking about Trump recently cutting aid to the South African military. Yes, I know that was with the US aid, but now it's being implemented. I have some thoughts on that, so check out the episode tomorrow morning coming out on Newsflash. And thank you guys so much for being part of this Newsflash podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Heleen herself. And yeah, I'll be back soon with another podcast. I'm not gonna say when and where. Obviously, where is here, but when just yet. Still waiting for confirmation. But some of you may have watched that video that I did on no more race laws, a bill that the IRR is pushing through or hoping to push through with the aid of you guys. I'm going to have one of IRR's people on the show to talk about the bill and answer some of your burning questions that you had in the comment section of that video. I strongly urge a lot of you to tune in when you see that. It's going to be a very interesting conversation. We're going to find out how exactly does the IR plan on pushing through this bill, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of pushback. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you at the next one. And also, thank you for the super chats. Almost forgot. Thank you so much for all those super chats tonight. Cheers.